Well, welcome to this special segment on Newsx. My name is Vineet Malhotra. In May 2025, when India responded to the Pahalgam terror attack with Operation Sindoor, most global military experts would rely on Pakistani propaganda mouthpieces and their social media proxies to jump to conclusions. But a few were observing the war closely and then made assessments based on research, critical analysis, and most importantly, truth. Among them was the global war scholar, Colonel John Spencer, who we are hosting tonight, and it's a pleasure to have him in our studios. John Spencer is a retired U.S. Army infantry officer and one of the world's leading experts on urban warfare. With 25 years of military service and also having served in Iraq, as chair of urban warfare studies at West Point's Modern War Institute, he has conducted extensive field research and interviewed senior military and political figures, including Ukrainian and Israeli commanders, IDF leadership, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu during his research into the Gaza war. Netanyahu even publicly cited Spencer's expertise during his 2024 address to the US Congress. John Spencer is in India to research about Operation Sindoor. In the past few months, they have met with Indian Army and Air Force officers in an attempt to understand an operation that is far above just a military exchange on the border. Over the next 30 minutes, we have an opportunity to learn from one of the best global warfare experts on not just Operation Sindoor, but all the recent global geopolitical and strategic developments. John, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. It's a pleasure to have you. And of course, we are also going to talk about your book, which is 20 Times I Almost Died. Now, this is a very interesting title. It sounds very precarious and dangerous. Before I get into the geopolitics of things, I want to understand from you, what is your new book all about? And of course, since it's been written by John Spencer, I would recommend everyone to get their hands on this. John, welcome to the show. Welcome to India. Tell us about your book.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. And so the book is across my military career, but also in my new line of research, which is war research, going into war zones to research what is happening on the ground. I found myself close to death or facing death, but the book is a lot of storytelling, but also what I learned from those. Like the fact why I'm here is that some things you just don't know unless you get on the ground. Going to Pahalgam to see the terrorists, interview survivors, interviewing commanders who fought in those battles. These are some of the lessons, and there's 20 lessons as well. It probably doesn't sell as well to say 20 life lessons, but that's what they are. They're 20 life lessons of what I've learned in my military career and now in my war research career.
You know, when we were speaking offline just before this interview started, you spoke about 2611 as well, and that you did research on that. Now, that was a long time ago. That was in 2008. We're in 2026 right now. And you also spoke about intelligence gathering and analysis of different terrorist situations and attacks and counterattacks by a government is like day and night. Talk about that.
Sure. So having walked the ground of the 2611 and 2008 attacks, every site the terrorists walked to and how they conducted that attack, which was planned extensively, of course, by the Pakistan ISI, that was a long time ago. The technologies we have on the battlefield today for terrorism or for warfare are night and day in intelligence. So we talked about intelligence gathering, even what the United States and Israel was able to do in Iran based on intelligence gathering to kill not just the supreme leader, but the entire military chain of command. To do that now is, some people have the capability, and I hope it puts, like China, makes people afraid, and that's what you want. But just a realization of 20, 25 years ago, the way that we have artificial intelligence, fiber optic drones, intelligence, I can tap into your highway cameras, the things that weren't around in 2008.
Or blow up your pager.
Blow up your pager, absolutely. The sheer capabilities that some nations have today. But it should be scary as well as what terrorists can have and what we're facing around the world, whether it's drones on airports or things like that. It's how fast we're moving. We sometimes don't reflect, and some of that's in my book, of whether it's my time in Iraq a long time ago,
2003.
2003 or 2008. There's stories in there from my 2008 tour as well. Just the threats and the technologies. We live in this connected world of not just warfare, but even in social media. More people get their information, although this is called Newsx, from X, formerly Twitter, than anywhere in the world. And that really matters, and really what part of our research in Operation Sindoor is, why did the West get it so wrong when it's, all of the evidence is so compelling on how India dominated the escalation ladder, could hit anything in Pakistan they wanted? How did the world get that wrong? It's because of this social media driven news,
narrative, the wrong narrative,
warfare, everything.
John, we're going to talk about Operation Sindoor as well. You've mentioned 20 times I almost died. I take that this is literally. Which of these incidents do you think was the most fraught with danger that you still think about, I shouldn't have made it alive out of that one?
Well, there's one instance of my first tour in Iraq when the roadside bombs, which was really bad for the U.S. military. We saw.
And this is 2003.
2003. We saw one on the side of the road. I was a young commander in charge of 40 infantry soldiers, and we stopped because there's one on the side of the road. It's very obvious, and my soldiers didn't want to stay there and to deal with what happens if you find something. You have to stay there for hours. So they told me, like, can't we just pull it off the road? And something inside of me said, don't do that. And come to find out, there were 4 bombs underneath that. Jeez. It was a trap. So had we pulled that, I wouldn't be here today. And something told me, which is whether you're religious or there's a really good book called The Book of Fear, A Gift of Fear. Like something was telling me deep inside of me.
Your gut fear, you had an instinct.
Intuition told me not to pull on that, and I didn't, or because it was a big trap.
Okay. Folks, get your hands on this book. I'm definitely going to read this, and we're going to have another conversation about your experiences. I want to talk about Operation Sindoor, and I also want to contextualize, it's been over a year since Operation Sindoor happened. Do you think that based on what you have said on X, based on your research, the world has finally noticed that Pakistan was just lying about what actually happened in Sindoor?
No, I think it's, and one of the reasons I came here, and I think we spoke when I was here right after the operation.
Absolutely.
I thought that would happen naturally, right? All the evidence, all the satellite imagery, like conclusive evidence. But this is the age of narrative warfare, and why we were so motivated, me and my co-author for the book, Liam Collins, to write the book is, and we've seen it in other wars, but probably not as where there's such a compelling case as this one. No, the world thinks still they believe the lies of how many downed Indian aircraft there were, and that was the only metric. And that's why we're so motivated to write the conclusive what happened, what is all of the evidence, and do it very academically to make it solid. Because I do still believe the truth matters. And in this case, all the work even before Operation Sindoor, which is a part of our research, like why did India have success? Because I'm a U.S. military expert, a global expert, so I'm also trying to get the lessons, selfishly, of how did India perform so well. I want to rewrite not the narrative, but to have the conclusive what happened. And we're doing the same with a war between Armenia and Azerbaijan.
Sure.
And we do it as objectively as possible, and I think some Indians might not like that. Like, what are the Pakistan, what's their evidence? So we may interview Pakistan experts about what they say happened, and then write the actual history. But I don't think the world, after a year later, I think it's still the same, which really, there's a whole chapter on how did India initially lose that narrative, and why did the West, or why did kind of the broader media keep running with a very small part of the story when it's such a compelling historical case, which it should be, of a limited war for very clear objectives where the political and the military objectives are aligned, which we could talk about some things right now in the world where it doesn't seem as such. It's such a conclusive case of victory that the world, if you were to Google it, still hasn't been convinced.
All right, on that note, I want to ask you a question. Do you think India is also perhaps sometimes misunderstood just the way Israel has been misunderstood? Since the occupation, or whatever you call it, since the war in Gaza, the pressure and the criticism against Netanyahu and the Israelis has only mounted, right? But Israel says that it's doing for survival. It's an existentialist crisis for them, and they are misunderstood, right? They panned across the world for creating a humanitarian crisis in Gaza, which may not be the case as such. It perhaps is being done by Hamas itself, right, to garner all these headlines. Do you think India also sometimes falls into that trap and doesn't respond as vehemently as Israel should also?
It's a good question. As a military researcher,